Welcome into Spotlight on the NFL. Hey, this is one of the weeks that we have more to talk about than any point in the offseason, and we're getting closer to real football action. Rookie minicamp starting this week. That means OTAs are going to be up and running. That means minicamps coming. And really, in just a couple weeks, we'll get the schedule drop, and then it's time for training camp. So it is right around the corner to the National Football League. Behind me, you see the setup for the NFL draft that was at Lambeau Field. It was actually in the parking lot of Lambeau and drew well over 100,000 people to Green Bay. And if you're thinking, hey, that seems like a decent amount of people, it is, because Green Bay is 90 minutes from Milwaukee and really, really hard to get to. There's not much of a city there. Gerald, Bentley here, Alex Campbell. You are watching us on Sports TV Plus on all sorts of great streaming services. Sports.tv, Carbon TV, True TV Plus, and Watchy streaming services, and on cable systems throughout the great state of Maryland. So wherever you're tuning in to see us, we appreciate it. And it is time to talk a little bit about the National Football League. Alex, the whole draft is behind us now. When we spoke last time, it was only the first round. And we got to talk a little bit about the story that ended up driving up the ratings for the second and third round to a record. Shedur Sanders dropping like a rock, ends up going in the fifth round to, inexplicably, the Cleveland Browns. There he is. There's Shedur with the Browns helmet, the plain helmet, the plain orange. What was your take on it? To me, it was just typical Browns in this new era. Just, man, if there's a way they can screw it up, they will.
Like, it's been done before. I mean, you know what I mean? Like, the Commanders picked, RG3 and Cousins in the same draft, and Cousins ended up being, the better, career quarterback. RG3 showed a lot of upside. Like, it's been done before. I don't know that these are the guys, and I also question heavily the sequence. Shedur, you're talking about a guy that at least at one point was being talked and going in the first round, so he's at least got talent to some extent.
Top
his
five.
His attitude may be frustrating, but he's got some talent. And they go with Gabriel in a reach in the third round instead, and then put a weird situation with a high-profile quarterback. That is the strangest situation in the NFL going into this year as far as the young quarterback is. Shedur probably on the bench behind, what is he, third, fourth string? I mean, he's going to be pretty deep on the depth chart. And I think that will continue to be a story and probably a distraction for that organization. And it's the crazy thing is it's all highly predictable. But anyway.
Yeah, and it seems like from the reaction of the general manager and the head coach, Drew Barry and Kevin Stefanski, that the owner made that pick. That was a pick from the Haslams, not the GM, not the coach. Well, to reference how much they reached. I just want to give people an idea of how big of a reach it was for Dillon Gabriel. He was ranked behind, of course, Cam Ward, the number one overall pick. Shedur Sanders was ranked as the second best quarterback by CBS Sports. Jackson Dart, number 3. Jalen Milroe, 4. Will Howard, 5. Quinn Ewers. So the NFL disagreed with that one. Kyle McCord. Tyler Schuff. Again, the NFL disagreed with that. He went a lot higher than Dillon Gabriel. So, and keep in mind, this is also a team that traded for Kenny Pickett. They traded a draft pick to get Kenny Pickett from Philadelphia. And then just yesterday declined his fifth-year option. So it makes you wonder, when in the world did you trade a pick to get him? You're declining your option. You haven't even seen him play. And they signed the soon-to-be fossilized remains of Joe Flacco, getting ready to suit up and quarterback at the age of 40. And it just makes you wonder, what in the world are they doing? Yeah, it does.
He seems older.
He moves older. He moves like he's 50.
He does. Yeah, man. I don't know. There are some seriously bad, quarterback rooms this year, and in the entire league, really. I mean, there's 10. I mean, either between like complete youth, where you've got some unproven leading the way out of what I would call one of the weaker quarterback drafts, in the
very
last
much so.
Few years, and yeah, and then beyond that, there's just some really bad rosters out there with not an answer at quarterback. So I think there's between all that, there's probably 10 teams that this season is basically gone right now, in a sense. It's just a rebuilding year because you don't have anything, you don't have an answer there.
Yeah, you can already just mail it in because it's not the old days. It's not the 80s where, okay, man, we got the defense. We got an okay running back. We got a really good offensive line. Quarterback's a problem, but hey, we're going to run the ball. We're going to play defense. We're going to win close. I mean, Marty Schottenheimer made a career of that with 3 different franchises, the Browns, the Chiefs, and the Chargers. The one common thread is they never won big in the playoffs, but they'd have great regular season records. The only team that's really been able to do that lately is the Pittsburgh Steelers under Mike Tomlin. They've had winning records, thrown it together with a good defense, not a great running game, but a consistent running game, and subpar quarterbacks. Really, even the last few years of Ben Roethlisberger, they were quite subpar. But they had a winning record, Kenny Pickett at quarterback for 2 years. That formula doesn't win anymore. If you don't have the quarterback, you're done. You're playing for nothing.
And also, investing in defense is not always financially is not always the way to get the best defense. They've had very talented defenses. I mean, they've always had a talented defense, but it's not in recent years been the most efficient way to get even to the level they're at. You know what I mean? Because they end up paying for a lot of the money is legacy money. It's tied up into veterans that end up injured a lot, and they have to play young players anyways. I think they could take a more youthful, athletic approach to defense, save a lot of money, and then invest in the offense. It's pretty clear that they've just been chasing for a number of years, not only a replacement for Ben Roethlisberger, but a free one, or at least a very cheap one. I think that is relatively obvious, and it's because they have the highest payroll on defense, which has been true in large part for the last decade.
Yeah, no, it's obvious where they spend their money, and that leads to not being able to be competitive in the playoffs. I mean, it just does.
Right. You don't have a closer.
Right now,
that's what it is.
Yeah, right now they have their lot cast with Aaron Rodgers because the Steelers, everyone thought, okay, my God, there is no way they pass on a good quarterback. They need one. It's obvious. Everybody watching the teams say, okay, you got everything except this. Well, they go through the draft and they still don't have that because they drafted a defensive lineman.
Yeah.
Which
there we go.
I mean,
exactly.
Okay. I mean, Cam Hayward's not going to be there forever, and TJ Watt's, you count on him being hurt every year, but you don't need a defensive line. You need offense.
Right.
And they just seem like they are going to steamroll their way to another, they won't have a losing season because Mike Tomlin doesn't have losing seasons, but pencil them in at 10-7 or 9-8. And I don't care if they get Aaron Rodgers. That's where they're going to be.
I agree. I think they did a good job in the draft, though. I mean, like you said, Hayward's not getting any younger. They actually did need help on the defensive line. This draft was relatively deep on the defensive line, so you can grab one in the bottom third of the draft there, where they got him. Caleb Johnson out of Iowa is probably one of the most underrated running backs in this class, and what is a pretty good running back class. I think he's solidly, which they need. I think he's solidly probably the number 3 out of this class, and that's saying a lot because the top 2, especially the top 1 in Genty, is maybe the best I've seen in college.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like maybe he's definitely up there where it's just he was head and shoulders above everyone else. I like Sawyer out of Ohio State, and then even the value pick in Will Howard later. I really like the whole draft that they had. Howard is not going to be the difference. I mean, he's not probably any different than Kenny Pickett, but they do end up taking the quarterback there late. You know what I mean? It's not the worst thing.
At this point, you got Mason Rudolph and then Skylar Thompson.
Right.
And Will Howard, I mean, that's not striking fear into anybody. If the
Yeah.
season were to start today, you have to start Mason Rudolph. They did need a running back because Najee Harris is with the Chargers now. And he had to be feeling a little disappointed because he signed a incentive heavy free agent contract. And then the Chargers went ahead and they made the pick that I'm sure Jim Harbaugh couldn't resist because, he likes running the ball. They take
Right.
Hampton out of North Carolina with their first round pick. What do you think about that? The AFC West loading up on the running backs.
Yeah, definitely. It's really, I think you can really see that as a pursuit kind of league wide where, you look at where all these running backs were taken. They've had a bounce back. We had that one blip
Mm-hmm.
year where it was like nobody's paying the running backs, and now all of a sudden it's like, hey, they're drafting running backs in the first round. I think, they hit on some things. I mean, Jahmyr Gibbs, I think, was a pretty big hit. A lot of people saw that
Yeah.
as a lot of people criticized that pick and said you
Yeah,
can't
they
take a
said it
running
was
back that
insane
early.
that they took him.
It was insane that they took him, and that paid off. And it probably will continue to. So I think that there is a lot of talent coming out of college right now at running back too, and it helps. We're seeing kind of, I don't, it's not really a golden age, but it's certainly a pretty good era, that we have in running back. Even, not stock college football, but we do that too. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And I would say that now in college football, there's probably 12 to 15 really good running backs, and any one of them could be a standout in the NFL.
Well, and I think that you're going to see more running backs get showcased in college because here, quite simply, transfer portals in effect, and they talked about it. The Chiefs player personnel director, Ryan Nutt, talked about how it's hard to track the character of the players and the personality because most of these guys that are high level prospects, they've gone to 2 or 3 schools. So you have to talk to multiple coaching staffs and figure out
Yeah.
what's the truth and what's the lie because a lot of times the teams they transferred away from, they're upset with the guy, and the team they went to, they love him. So the truth is somewhere in the middle. The
Right.
other thing that factors into that with the constant transferring, you don't build relationships, you don't build chemistry. Um, I've been talking on our soccer report show here on Sports TV Plus all year about how you can see the trouble that Sporting Kansas City's having, even though they got the best striker in the league from last year, Dejan Jovic. Well, it's a precision game. You have to know where the pass is coming. It's all about positioning. Well,
Right.
the attacking midfielder who's passing the ball has no idea yet where Dejan's going to be. So they're missing passes. They're airmailing them. In football, if you're going to run a pass heavy offense, you have to have chemistry. You got to know where each other's going to be. Since you're
Yeah.
transferring guys all the time and you're building no chemistry, you're going to run the ball a lot. It's a lot easier to run
Absolutely.
the ball than it is to throw it.
It's easier on all fronts. It's easier on the offensive
Mhm.
line. You know what I mean? It's easier on the clock. It takes the other offense off the field. I mean, it's everything that every coach you go back 20 years would say going into every press conference. You know what I mean? It's the running the ball has a lot of advantages, and it stabilizes your offense basically. So yeah, definitely with it constantly in flux. Especially because, like you said, that it's a lack of chemistry coming into a year. You're a complete unknown, and you're going to enter some
Sure.
crazy atmosphere at prime time, and under the lights with a bunch of players who have played for your program, and they may be talented, but for all of 4 games. You know what I mean? That's a tough spot to be. That's a tough
Yeah.
tough spot to be for a young 19, 20-year-old kid. You know,
Uh, Especially, I mean, think of the difficulty if you're lined up in one of those high profile week 0 games.
right.
Okay. I've been on campus for 2 months because college football training camp bleeds right into the season. You get like a month. And then week 0, okay, I'm playing Mississippi State on primetime on ABC. And I've been on
Okay.
campus for a month and a half, new offense, new players. Probably not going to look too good. So you got to dumb
Yeah.
that offense down.
Exactly. Exactly. But
Well, hey,
yeah. Go
sticking
ahead.
with sticking with the running backs and close to your neighborhood, New England Patriots with Mike Vrabel at the helm, they I think did a really good job, and they both kept in Mike Vrabel's character of wanting to play hard physical football, hammer the rock, and also protect Drake May, which is something that wasn't happening last year. Now he's got Josh McDaniels, so he has a legitimately good offensive coordinator. And they went ahead and fixed a glaring weakness. Take Will Campbell. Maybe he's a guard, maybe he's a tackle, but either way, he's going to be a impact starter right out of the bat. And then in the second round, they got one of those impact running backs in Travion Henderson from the Ohio State, one of the running back duos from the Buckeyes. I mean, he's going to be a great fit for that Patriots team, and he just fits exactly what Mike Vrabel wants to do. What's the feel up there in Boston?
I think they're in love with that. They're rallying around, May and the whole plan on offense. They're welcoming back, McDaniels. He's more popular here than probably anywhere in the country. You know what I mean?
Sure. Well, the rings help.
Yeah, very, very well received. Campbell was talked about a lot, and I think was who they expected him to take, and who they should have taken. It was kind of destiny at that pick. So they made the right pick, but it was the only thing they could do, because it was such a glaring need. And Campbell was the best tackle, and with the position that you need the most, and probably the deepest tackle draft in last 5 years. You know what I mean? So I would definitely say that was a no-brainer, and good for the Patriots. Henderson was a great pick too. You're talking about an explosive guy out of Ohio State. Really a prototypical NFL running back body too. He should hold up. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
And then they addressed more offensive line, defensive line later in the draft as well. I mean, they drafted another tackle in Marcus Bryant later on. I think they really addressed a lot of needs. And beyond that, I mean, the draft in part is part and parcel, to the rest of the offense or the offseason. When you talk about free agency and everything, and I think they made some quiet moves. They really kind of changed over the roster and then filled in the other holes in the draft. It was kind of interesting to kind of watch it all from that angle. Like Howard Landry is not a signing that was talked about a lot. I think that was pretty huge because they addressed also a need, there in the pass rush, and then taking Farmer where they did in the 4th round. I think he's a guy that could actually contribute in the lineup. So they're getting to the point now where they may be able to rush the passer a little bit without going super blitz heavy, and that would pay huge dividends for a defense that was not really feared among the league anymore for a while, since the Belichick days, and those are farther and farther in the mirror now.
Well, to the point that with the roster moves that happened after the draft, there is not a player on the roster, the entire roster as you had in training camp, that appeared on any of the Super Bowl teams. Right. So that just gives you an idea. It's a different era. It's a new era. But I think they're in dramatically better position because we're talking about building chemistry, building a team. Mike Vrabel knows what he wants to do. Yeah. And Drake May is going to get as good a shot as possible because you also know Mike Vrabel knows what ended up killing his run in Tennessee was not having that impact level quarterback, that franchise level starting quarterback that just can go out there and play. He just didn't get it. The closest they got was Ryan Tannehill, who was okay, but not. If Ryan Tannehill's your starter, you're okay going into the season, but you want to get better than him every year. And they never did. And that's what ended up killing him. So with Drake May, he actually, I think, has his best chance to succeed as a head coach.
I think he does too, but I'm a bit more pessimistic on May than most. Only because it's not even pessimistic. It's more pump your brakes. You know what I mean? Because we saw this with Mac Jones. Mac Jones probably had a better rookie season than Drake May just had. So let's, we've seen this before. let's wait and see. Year 2 is difficult. He wasn't the best rookie quarterback this year either.
No, he was 4th, arguably.
Yeah. And so I hope 5th. They have the future, set there, but I don't know. I don't think anybody really does if they're being entirely honest, but there is certainly a lot of hype around Drake May. He's definitely been well received, but I think if they're being, most Patriot fans are being completely honest, it's more out of desperation than anything, because you need a winner there. you got to have somebody that carries over to the second year, the third year, and beyond.
Sure.
And hopefully, and I think McDaniels is also somebody who puts faith in that as well. Having him call the offense, especially with the relationship he's had with and knows Vrabel very well. I think that's a really good pairing. And because Vrabel will be able to take command of the room. You know what I mean? A lot of these guys are former players. You get guys like Dan Campbell and these guys that are big men and truly authoritative big men. I'm not going to worry about a head coach, former head coach and offensive coordinator trying to run the room or anything like that. Like he's going to take command of the room, and McDaniels will have his spots and he'll shine. McDaniels is a brilliant offensive coordinator. He's never been anything but successful as an offensive coordinator.
He's been a great coordinator. It's just head coach. Head coach is a hard job. I mean, there's a reason why there's a handful of guys who are difference makers as a head coach. One of those who is not Brian Daboll with the New York Giants can't be feeling all that good that, well, maybe, I don't know. You get Abdul Carter, so you're building strength on strength, adding more to the defensive line. They're going to have a good pass rush, which is important in that division because you're going up against the Eagles, the Commanders, the Cowboys, some good offenses. You need that pass rush. They get Jackson Dart as one of their quarterbacks, traded up, gave up 2 third-round picks. You got Russell Wilson, you got Jameis, and a good pick, a guy that I wanted to see the Kansas City Chiefs draft because I saw him covering the Big 12. Cam Shedur, going to be a New York Giant. He's not Saquon Barkley, but they definitely need a running back. So I think Shedur is going to be a day one starter for the Giants. So they added a little bit.
Bigger kid, he can break tackles. You know what I mean, and pick up first downs. I mean, Scadu's nice. Jackson Dart, I felt like was a great pick. It was a thin quarterback draft, and I felt like he was maybe the best one of the bunch. Abdul Carter is great. Requesting LT's number is probably not the smartest thing a rookie can do.
No, that's not going to happen.
I will say that's not the best day one move.
No. It's a little bit different than Cam Ward asking for Warren Moon's number when Warren Moon never actually played a game in Tennessee. He was an Oiler. So a little bit different. I agree with that.
It's different. Yeah, it's different. Yeah.
How about the other team in New York?
What the Giants did, overall. I really do. So I think they're building something for the future, but I don't think that Daboll survives and makes it to that future. I don't.
No, he's dead man walking.
It almost feels like they set him up for failure here in this year in order to rebuild in this offseason and set themselves for next offseason. They're going to have a ton of cap space next year, and I think that's all part of it. I think there's a new coach, maybe new GM coming, and a whole splash in the offseason. Very big New York franchise style. I feel it. Next offseason is the one you're really going to see the Giants go out.
Historically, the better of the two franchises. Usually a consistent winner. Yeah,
absolutely.
You're not. There's no universe where you're winning that division with Russell Wilson and Jameis Winston playing significant games. And I don't think you're winning it with Jackson Dart.
Probably not. But you got to take a shot. You know what I mean? You got to take a shot because you're certainly not winning long term with Winston or certainly not Russell.
No.
Not Winston or Wilson.
Well, but there's going to be openings for offensive coordinators next year, so Brian Daboll will be okay.
He'll be fine. He'll be fine.
You can get a nice offensive coordinator's not a bad gig.
No, it's not.
The other team,
the Lions struggled this year, right? And it's the offense that struggles. I think that would be a great spot. Yep, just pencil it in.
Good spot, sure.
I think it looks great already. I'd take him in a heartbeat. Yeah.
Well, I think he's available. He's available Black Monday. He's going to be there. How about the other team that shares MetLife Stadium, the New York Jets? Jets. Yeah, we talked about them taking the offensive lineman from Missouri, Armand Membu. Second year in a row, they drafted a tackle. And third year, actually, they took a tackle high because their last drafted tackle, Mekhi Bechdel, was playing guard for the Eagles last year. So they've been chasing that tackle position. They also add a high-end pass catch and tight end, which I think is a good move to help Justin Fields out. Mason Taylor, son of Jason Taylor from LSU, third-ranked tight end in the draft, but maybe the most athletic. And that is, I think, a really good move because Aaron Glenn is going to want to feature the tight end, much like Sam Laporta was in Detroit.
Absolutely. Yeah, that was a great pick. Taylor, I think, is has the potential to be like a perennial Pro Bowler type player. I really like his athleticism, and he's one of these guys who can still throw a block. Like, he's very athletic.
Mm-hmm.
He gets vertical well, but he can still get down on the line and help you in the run game. He can chip and delay into the flat really, really well, moves his feet great, and he's super athletic. We're seeing a whole new kind of era of tight ends. It seems like that's the position on the offense that constantly evolves into something else. It's been happening, almost my whole lifetime at this point, and probably before that. It's like you have to really to go back to get to a tight end that's as productive as a lot of like what we have in the league now. Compared to like the rest of the league, you'd have to go back to like Mike Ditka. You know what I mean? Like, that was probably the last era where you had like tight ends, you know what I mean, who were catching 80, 90 balls in a season. That's crazy.
Well, the Ravens GM, Ozzie Newsome, was a focal point of the Browns offense back in the 80s, but he was never a good blocker.
Right.
And Kellen Winslow. But yeah, there's more pure athletes now playing tight end, and it's more than in those eras. The tight end was generally a throwaway position. You're an extra blocker, and occasionally we'll throw you a little 5-yard swing pass. Don't drop it. And now those guys are the second and third tight ends.
Yeah, and that's why if you had a guy like that, even going up through like the 80s and 90s, if you had a guy who could truly catch the ball and especially stretch the field, that was rare.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. Yeah, when Tony Gonzalez had his breakout, that was a generational talent. And then Antonio Gates came in, and that was the wave of, hey, let's get basketball players because these two basketball players are really good. Now you're seeing that more, I don't know, you want to say cerebral player. Travis Kelce has made, obviously, a lasting impression by being a former quarterback who's at tight end because he can move around and he knows the offense. He finds the holes in the offense. And that's something that I think a guy like a Mason Taylor, who's second generation NFL player and has always played at a high level, can add to the Jets and read and react, play off the play action that the Jets are going to use. And with a quarterback like Justin Fields, having a tight end that's a big, competent receiver that can just go find a hole in the zone and catch that little 5-yard pass and then turn it into something, that's going to be huge because Justin Fields needs those outlet receivers.
Of course,
when he's
especially because
backpedaling 7 and 8 yards.
I think they're going to run the ball a lot with Glenn, and I think he's going to play conservatively, like you said. Fields, I don't think he'll be featured as a runner and in some read option variant a little bit, but it won't be a lot. But I almost guarantee they'll be under center quite a bit, and they'll run that rollout bootleg where they get him on the move, probably a lot. You know what I mean? They're gonna love that with Fields. I can just see it coming right now. So yeah, I mean, having a tight end that can kind of, like I said, do that chip and then delay into the flat to be an outlet, because you're really looking for the receiver coming on the crosser route over the top. But if everybody drops deep, you're going to have that tight end underneath off the chip running that kind of route. Like, that's a huge thing right now. In this era of football, is a lot of those little one-off type things like a chip block. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Because nobody covers that. The middle linebacker doesn't come down and grab that. He's already out of the scene by that point. He's off somewhere else normally, and there's no one home there. It's just like it seems like a lot of third downs are picked up with that exact thing right there.
Oh
You know
yeah,
what I mean?
absolutely.
And then you look at guys like, like we're talking about tight ends, like Brock Bowers. Brock Bowers is like the, freaking Shohei Ohtani of tight ends. I swear. This kid is
Hmm.
amazing. Like Brock Bowers, I would almost guarantee if he stays healthy, is going to be a Hall of Famer. I've only seen him for the one season. Fantastic.
Well, and in college, you got a good look.
Yeah.
And well,
Yeah.
here, let's talk about the Raiders. Most draft boards and most draft analysts say they had one of the best drafts. And I think you're making a great point there. You already had Brock Bowers, who had an amazing season with really, really bad quarterbacking and bad head coaching with Antonio Pierce.
Yeah.
Now you got a good head coach, Pete Carroll. You have a good, not great NFL quarterback. Geno Smith is a good NFL quarterback. And
Yeah.
you pair them with Ashton Genty. Now you have another legitimate weapon on the offense and a guy who knows how to use the weapons, as opposed to Aiden O'Connell kind of standing there just thinking what he needs to do. You got a guy who knows what he's doing, and you're going to have a
Yeah.
coaching staff that knows what they're doing. They're going to be dramatically better.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we said it before, about the Raiders, is that it was all kind of hair on fire for a long, long time, and it seems like there's more stability in the room now. And it's gone, and you would think it's going to go a long ways. Genty is a stud. So if you count,
Yeah.
Bowers and Genty, Geno's enough. I think that's pretty good. Geno's good for about 15th in the league, 16th in the league.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, good. He's a good
He can
player.
win you games. You got to play pretty good on defense,
And
but he
then
can win games. You got to run the ball, play
they
pretty good on
got
defense.
they got a good wide receiver too. They took Jack Beck out of TCU in the second round. Quality player. So they're building that multi-dimensional offense that you want to see. And it's Pete Carroll offense. He's going to hammer the run, going to throw a bunch of short passes. And with Brock Bowers and Jack Beck as two of your top three receivers, you're going to see a lot of short passes. And then Jacoby Myers is good. He's okay. He's going to look a lot better with those guys surrounding him now.
Absolutely. And later in the draft, they had depth to the offensive line, which was sorely needed.
Mm-hmm.
They probably actually need another starter or two on the offensive line, but who knows? Maybe one of these kids blossoms into one. But I think these are more depth pieces, but still improves their offensive line. And yeah, I think things are really looking up for the first time for the Raiders in quite a while. I mean, quite a while. This is the best draft I've seen the Raiders have in a long, long time. Long time. Genty is a great pick. Beck's a great pick. I'd give them in general like an A. You know what I mean? As far as the draft grade, I don't think I really don't think they could have done much better with the picks they had.
No, not without trading, and they didn't want to trade because they needed bodies. Got to give Tom Brady credit. I think the Tom Brady influence was very prevalent in the draft too.
Yeah, I think his influence on the whole organization has been pretty evident. I think he helped probably with getting Pete Carroll there under ownership that Pete Carroll wouldn't have normally played for. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Like in the past, I think there was even to that extent. So yeah, I think Brady's had an impact on kind of the whole thing. Probably one of the loudest voices for a minority owner in the league, if not the loudest voice.
Well, and probably justifiably so. Again, considering what the Raiders have done too. Yeah.
Right. Right.
A team that I think did a good job too, the Houston Texans, because you're going to be playing this year without Tank Dell. The offense struggled mightily because their offensive line was just brutal last year. And if Nico Collins wasn't in there, they were in trouble. They added they picked up a bunch of draft picks too by trading Laramie Tunsil to the Commanders. They did help out CJ Stroud quite a bit. I like the tackle they took out of the University of Minnesota, and a native of Kansas City from Ruskin High School, about 40 minutes from here, Ariante Ursary. He was the Big Ten Offensive Lineman of the Year. He should be an immediate starter at some position, because I think a lot of these teams are going to go to hey, we're just going to get our best 5 linemen out there and figure it out. because
Yeah.
anybody that could play tackle in college can play guard in the NFL. It's an easier spot. So, I mean, he's going to be in there day one. And then I think they made a good move because we talked earlier about lack of chemistry in college football. Well, about as much chemistry as you can get. They took the two starting wide receivers from a quality Iowa State team, Jaden Higgins in the second round, and showing a heavy Kansas City angle, Jalen Noel from Park Hill High School out of Kansas City and Iowa State in the third round. So they
Yeah.
got a couple of wide receivers that know each other, know how they play, and
Right.
fills obvious needs that they have because, no Tank Dell and Nico Collins can only do so much by himself. So they did a good job supplementing the team.
Yeah. Yeah. They also took two players out of USC. So that wasn't the only one. They took Jalen Smith, the corner, and Woody Marks, one of the best names. I like names. That's one of the best names
Woody.
coming out of
Yeah.
draft. Woody Marks. You could go a lot of ways. Woody on the carry. Like you could do a lot of stuff.
The Seattle Seahawks, they did what you'd expect them to do, right? Took an offensive lineman, guy who's going to be a guard, Gray Zabel out of North Dakota State. Then they went safety. One of the highest rated safeties in the draft, Nick Emawari, which you got to think is kind of looking to do the style they want to play, right? Mike McDonald wants to have a couple of hitters. He wants that Legion of Boom back in the secondary. And then they made what I think is a pretty sharp move for the long term. Maybe the best athlete out of any of the quarterbacks in this draft, Jalen Milroe. They get him in the third round because, we watched Sam Darnold play with all the weapons you could possibly have in Minnesota. And when the games really mattered, he was done. I don't think he's the long-term answer for Seattle, and Seattle can get out of his contract after this year. What do you think of the Seahawks picking up Milroe?
Well, I thought it was a great, kind of value pick because of what you said. For all we know, he might be the most talented quarterback in the entire draft. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
At this point, I think it was that unpredictable and maybe bad of a quarterback. None of them may work out. Who knows? But Milroe reminds me a lot of like Joe Milton, but maybe a little better. You know what I mean? And you saw that crazy game that Milton had at the end of the year last year for New England.
Yeah, for the Patriots.
I think guys like that, not to say you're going to see that every game out of necessarily anyone, but some version of that is certainly possible. Where they can exploit that athleticism and for all of the running era quarterbacks, you look around the league, there really aren't, beyond Lamar, there really isn't one that can really put you in a blender. You know what I mean? Right now, they can really mix up the defense. Where I'm at the snap, I'm like, even if it is a pass, I feel like the quarterback could absolutely torch us. We cannot drop back just straight up in zone. We've got to dedicate a spy to the quarterback and really pay attention to him, and that changes how you defend, drastically. Yeah. If that guy's also a good passer, that's one less guy in coverage. Makes a pretty big deal.
Yeah, I mean, they'll spy Josh Allen, they'll spy Mahomes, but during the regular season, Mahomes and Allen aren't running to run. They're going to scramble and they'll be evasive. They'll get their 10 or 12 yards. And, you look at the end of the game, like, oh man, hey, they rushed for 80. But it wasn't game changing. It was mainly drive extending. So I'd agree with that because Jaden Daniels, but he's not going to run as much, I don't think, moving forward. I think that was partially a product of a bad offensive line, and he had to run.
Yeah, well, and that's a lot of what the mobility is about, right? A lot of even what like Milroe's about, basically. It's the ability to avoid the rush. But you look at the Super Bowl, that's a team. I mean, the Chiefs, with all the issues on the offensive line, they made the Super Bowl. I mean, so they were certainly good enough. And they, I mean, just allowed the floodgates open to tackle because that was the issue they had all year. And the Eagles are particularly strong in the front seven. So, I mean, they got annihilated.
Yeah.
So, when you watch that, it tells you that, like, there's not going to be a Joe Flacco that does reach that, to upper pedestal anymore. I think you need
No.
more mobility at quarterback just in general. These guys have to be at least to some degree. Like Drake May, like I said, part of the reason that they see a lot of upside with him is because he does feature some of that athleticism and can pick up the third down on 3rd and 8. You know what I mean? It gives you that extend the playability. And I think Milroe's similar, but with a little more quickness and a cannon of an arm. And I think that's where he kind of fits Joe Milton, kind of where that comparison contrasts.
Right there. No, that's good. Milroe's an athlete. He can go.
Yeah.
He also can miss a guy by 10 yards, but when he's good, he's good. Well, hey, let's look at as we're winding it down here, let's take a look at the Chiefs too, because they got a guy who was widely regarded as the best offensive lineman in the draft going into the season. Tears his patella tendon. The Chiefs say he's good. He's going to be ready to go for training camp. I mean, I kind of think he's going to be in there and he's going to play. I wouldn't be surprised if he's a day one starter in Josh Simmons, because just thinking about it, the patella tendon is damaged when you fix the ACL anyway. So everybody's had some patella tendon injuries, had an ACL. It doesn't strike me as being the biggest injury at all. I think it's magnified by saying a lot of guys don't come back from it because, quite honestly, a lot of guys don't tear it. It doesn't happen that often. The other picks they did were to enforce the other thing that kind of was a little down last year. They were second in the league in sacks the last 2 seasons prior to last year. Last year, they dropped off a lot. This year, they do get a healthy Charles Omenihu for the whole year for the first time in his Chiefs tenure, because he was suspended for the first 6 games of his first year, then missed the vast majority of this year with an ACL injury. So now you got a healthy Omenihu, and they added Omar Norman Lott, who was a rotational player at Tennessee, but led the NCAA in pass rush success. Yeah. And he's going to be a guy to partner up with Chris Jones and just make some disruption up the middle. And then they got a guy who George Karlaftis has been tutoring and has been working with personally in the offseason with their pass rush coach, Ashton Gillette from Louisville, who, according to reports, if he had 34-inch arms instead of 32-inch arms, he would have been a first-round pick. They also drafted the college football leader in interceptions in Noel Williams to help supplement that backfield. And then the guy they took in the 4th round surprised me, because most boards had him going late 1st, early 2nd. Utah State wide receiver Jalen Royals, who, when you watch him play, he looks like Rashee Rice. He plays like Rashee Rice.
Yeah, and Royals is a really
that works in this offense.
Royals has elite quickness, top end speed, and great hands, I would say. So, and the size of an NFL receiver too. I mean, he really is. I would say Lott. I'll be interested to see how that plays out. Maybe next to Jones. You know what I mean? That'll help because Jones he's going to play that 3-tech kind of position. He's a bit undersized. He's like 290, and didn't have the best bench press numbers at the combine. It's not the strongest defensive tackle, and it kind of is prototypes, like you said, more as a pass rusher up the middle. You know what I mean? So I think he'll be featured kind of in that role. Jalot and really even Williams, I think fit kind of the mold of what the Chiefs have drafted. You know what I mean? A lot of that, over the years, that fits kind of the mantra. Royals, I think, like I said, is kind of the standout there. So I agree with you.
Yeah, I mean, I think the Chiefs nailed the draft. It's one of the better drafts I think they've had, and they needed it because they've missed on a few since that huge draft in 2022, showcased by Trent McDuffie and George Karlaftis. Because you're drafting multiple defensive linemen, because FAU, Felix Amudike-Uzama from Lee Summit and K-State, has just done nothing. So they need this draft to come through because they've drafted positions that they've been chasing. They've been chasing a defensive end that can get some pass rush, and they've been chasing tackles. You drafted a tackle now 3 years in a row. Wanye Morris, Kingsley Suamataia, and Josh Simmons in the third, second, and first rounds. And before that, they took Lucas Niang in the fourth. So you took 4 tackles. Not when Josh Simmons is in there, but no, let's not count him. You took a tackle in a premium position that should be a starter each of the last 3 years, and neither of them are starting.
Right.
So that hurts. You need to convert in this draft.
Yeah, it's not the biggest, if you miss, detrimental position, but it's up there. It's up there. And the higher you take that you miss, obviously, the more penalizing it is. Will Campbell, you know what I mean? For instance, like if that is, there's some risk involved there. Williams, there's some risk involved too with the, coming off the injury. If he can return to form, I think it's a great pick, long term. They got to have someone there at tackle. They got to have someone there because, referencing it for a reason. You saw what happened.
That end of the Super Bowl, sure.
Some protection. And Mahomes is far too valuable, even just from a regular season injury risk standpoint, to not have solid tackles. That's part of the reason the Chiefs have, more than often had one of the highest paid offensive lines in the league, because it's worth that investment. You got a Hall of Famer back there, like a surefire, probably top 3 all time, no matter how you argue it, kind of guy. You want to protect him.
And then just the final 2 teams I want to highlight, the LA Chargers. I think they are in that position to get rolling. Amari and Hampton, just a perfect pick, like I referenced earlier. Najee Harris probably not too happy with his incentive-laden contract, but getting Amari and Hampton, that's going to be a great move. And he's a guy who's going to feature, be a day 1 starter. And they added a wide receiver too, and Trey Harris. Just somebody give him an extra option to go with Ladd McConkey, because that's what killed them in the playoffs. I mean, one position can make a huge difference, but I think the Chargers added 2 important pieces in that first 2 days of the draft.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I really like the pick of Branson Taylor, the kid out of Pittsburgh, late with the 6th rounder. If not for the injuries over the last couple of years, he probably would have been, even though he's a guard, I bet you he would have been a 3rd round, selection, probably one of the top guards in the draft here. So I think that was a big value pick. It really fits. The whole draft really fits the whole, mantra of the Chargers. I was surprised that they waited until the 5th round to address wide receiver. But don't forget that I've said multiple times, and I truly believe that I think this is easily overlooked, that Harbaugh has an advanced look into the next few years of college football, especially the top recruits, especially the kids coming out of the Big Ten and the top programs around the country. I'm telling you, because he's recruited most of them. He's certainly played against the ones he hasn't recruited. You know what I mean? He knows these players. He's seen them on the field and game plan for them and things. And I think all these picks really could pay off for that reason. I think this could be where Harbaugh really shines, and we haven't quite seen that yet.
Yeah, get a little separation, because it's going to be a vastly better AFC West than you've seen in the last few years. Chargers are coming on. The Raiders are going to be a lot better, and the Broncos. I think the Broncos are more than ready to be contenders. They looked really good last year, and they added.
They did. Knicks. I think that a lot of people similar position as May. Where a lot of people really like him. I just pump your brakes a little bit. I don't know. You know what I mean? Take into account that division. He's probably going to lose a lot of these games. I think the Raiders are probably at this point better than the Broncos. I do. So I think they at least split the series, if not Raiders sweep it for the season, because Geno, don't forget, like we talked about earlier, is a stabilizing type quarterback. You can kind of call your shot here because Herbert's going to be good, Geno's going to be good, Mahomes is going to be great. I don't know about Knicks, especially compared to the other 3. That's tough for him.
It's tough competition.
We'll see how it goes. He also has a Hall of Fame coach. You know what I mean? So, you know what I mean? So he's got, he's looking up, but that's tough. I would list that as one of, like I said, one of the lower quarterback rooms around the NFL, honestly, because there's nothing really behind him.
Oh,
No,
absolutely. It's Sean Payton's going to have to coach him up.
Yeah.
And finally, talking about somebody that's going to need to coach up, Ben Johnson with the Chicago Bears. He has one job. He said it at his introductory press conference. I got to coach up Caleb Williams. Well, they get Colston Loveland, so they have that impact tight end. Early second round, they got a guy who was ranked as a first-round pick by a lot of people, Luther Burden from Missouri, an explosive slot receiver. So, I mean, that's a really good pairing. And then they added a couple of tackles, a defensive and an offensive tackle as you went down the later rounds. But I really like the pairing of Loveland at tight end and Luther Burden, because now you're giving Caleb Williams two guys who are going to be consistent outlets and are proven playmakers at high-level colleges. I think those are huge moves. Getting the tight end out of Michigan and the wide receiver out of Missouri. I mean, granted, the SEC and the Big Ten aren't the NFL, but these guys are ready to go and contribute on day one, and their style of play just fits so perfect with Ben Johnson's offense. Loveland can take that Laporta role, and Burden can take that Amon-Ra St. Brown role, and just take a ton of pressure off of Caleb Williams.
And they already have some talented receivers. You know what I mean? So
they got DJ Moore.
Adunze. I mean, so I think they're going to have a really good receiver room. One of them's got to play the slot, and I think whoever that is going to have a huge advantage, because the outside receivers are that good, and I think they're all maturing right at the same time. Moore's the only really veteran of the group. So Burden, I expect Burden to be a bit of a stud there, because I think he's like maybe starts off as a second or third option, and I think because he starts off as a third option, he really flourishes. Loveland is going to be fantastic. Loveland, I thought, had NFL written all over him the whole time at Michigan. He was far and away the best tight end in a very talented tight end room at Michigan. And is more of, like what you said earlier, more of that basketball player type tight end. He didn't play basketball at Michigan, but you know what I mean? But he's definitely more of that vein, where very good pass catcher, field stretcher. The kid is also real big, like the kind of height that it takes to move the chains and catch a pass over the middle. You know what I mean? He does have that kind of that size, but he can also torch you over the middle if you put him in single coverage with a linebacker. He's cooked, and he's one of those too. He's kind of bigger than the fast guys and faster than the big guys. So he's in a good spot there.
Yeah, you don't have to be a 4.4 to be explosive. You can be 4.6. It's okay. It's still pretty fast, especially when you're
the right way. You don't have to have the elite speed if you're big enough. He goes 6'4" or so. That's big enough.
Yeah, you're 6'4", 260. Defensive back's going to have trouble taking you down. Well, hey, let's wind it down here. We'll wrap it up and just get our quick champion of the week, and let's go with our goat of the week too. The team you think did the best, the team you think did the worst.
All right.
There you go.
Hey guys, it's your girl Ash by Elegance, and you're watching me on Wrestling Spotlight.
Sister Channel Wrestling Spotlight. We got some great events coming up from Pro South, from Glory Pro, and we also have our breakdown of WWE post WrestleMania and AEW, because we haven't had a chance to talk with them for a little while. You can tune into that on Wrestling Spotlight on all these same platforms. Alex, champion of the week and your goat of the week.
My champion of the week is going to be Ashton Genty, because I think he landed in a good spot. Because I think they're going to feature him a ton, and he's so talented. He's probably, I got him for odds-on Rookie of the Year pick. He's that good, it's tough. I thought a lot of the teams really drafted pretty well, honestly, but it's got to be the Browns because of how they again handled the quarterback situation, and it really all just seems like a Band-Aid effort just throughout. I mean, Flacco's a Band-Aid. You know what I mean? Everything's a Band-Aid here. None of it is really a solution. And then they get the big splash. And what you mentioned earlier, I meant to respond to that. It does feel like an ownership move. The rest of the draft felt like, even the Gabriel pick, if you felt like he was the guy, okay. I liked the rest of the draft enough to be like, all right. But then you pick Sanders, and I'm like, bro, like I'm going to draw the line there. That's insane. Because now you have a cocky guy who's going to be your 4th round quarterback. Who knows what he's going to say or do in the locker room? And he's got pulled because his dad's a Hall of Famer and a loudmouth one at that. You know what I mean? So good luck. It just seems like such a dumb, it's funny. It reminds me so much. There was I know we're wrapping up, but I can't not say this. It reminds me so much. There was that documentary on Johnny Manziel, and watching even Manziel now, like for 5 minutes, I am not drafting that guy to play quarterback on my football team. No, sure. I don't think he can shoulder that responsibility. And for some reason, as talented as he is, with the legacy that he has and the pedigree that he has, every other team thought, no thanks on Sanders. And of course, it was the Browns. I'm good.
Yeah, and you got to wonder what in the world were they thinking trading for Kenny Pickett, too. Yeah, I'm with you there. Yeah.
A Band-Aid.
Could have started him and then tank it and get Arch Manning or whoever else, because next year's class, Drew Aller, next year's class is supposed to be a lot better.
They might still do that. This is the Browns quarterback room is, you never know. It's spaghetti thrown at the wall and hoping something sticks. That's what we're doing.
Yeah, and that's being kind to Jimmy Haslam. And they're still trying to get a new stadium too, right by the airport, which God knows they should do, but who knows if it'll happen or not. I'm going to go with
a franchise quarterback. You're certainly a lot closer to getting the stadium.
Sure you are. Yeah. Well, it's okay. He's suing the city of Cleveland to get the stadium, so it'll all work out fine. It's going to be good.
It'll all work out.
Yeah. Oh, man. The lieutenant governor's Jim Tressel. Maybe he'll weigh in, former Ohio State coach.
Yikes.
Yeah. Now, I'm going to go with Colton Loveland because I think he will be a challenger for Offensive Rookie of the Year with Genty, because he's going to get a ton of receptions. Because Caleb Williams is going to be looking for those outlet passes in the Ben Johnson offense. And Loveland's going to be there to catch him. And for the loser of the draft, I'm going with our friend Brian Daboll, because, man, he can't be feeling too comfortable. With that, we'll go ahead and wrap it up here on Spotlight on the NFL. Thanks for joining us on Sports TV Plus. Download that True TV Plus app. Take it with you wherever you go. It's the best way to watch the channel. And you can also catch us out on sports.tv, Carbon TV, and Watchy. Alex, any place where people can go and follow you throughout the week if they want to get some updates?
Yeah. Still Fired Up Alex on X, Fired Up Alex on Insta. And coming soon, we are getting awfully close to the college football season in a lot of ways. So I'm excited. I'm really excited about next season of Campus Bets with college football. So we do that on YouTube. Just Campus Bets at YouTube. We'll probably start in early August. Just to start.
It's right around the corner.
Talk about some futures.
Because it's go time, because the conference, you don't even know now because the rosters are still getting put together. It's crazy. And then you can stay tuned here. You can also check out Spotlight on KC Sports. This week I'm joined by Keegan Russell. I had a chance to talk with Royals third baseman, left fielder, but more importantly, the leadoff hitter, Jonathan India. Wow. About, the Colt's getting me, about how he's been getting into a groove offensively, and it just coincided that as Jonathan India started hitting, the Royals started playing well, 8-2 in their last 10. That's on Spotlight at KC Sports, available right now on Sports TV Plus. Everybody have a great week, and the NFL seasons are rolling along. Next big thing is the schedule drop that's coming up on the 17th. We'll see you here on Sports TV Plus. Thanks.